Thanks for taking the time to download this BBC Radio 5 Live podcast. To search for other podcasts you might like, click bbc.co.uk/5live, where you'll also find our terms of use.
Real Sounds of Africa there to once again kick off our World Football phone-in. 08085 909 693 is the number to call if you'd like to join in. That's 08085 909 693. If you'd like to talk about football in America, North and South, representing the north side of things is our Neymar, John Arnold. Good morning, John.
Morning, Don. How you doing?
Very well, thanks very much. Representing the southern side of the Americas is the legendino Tim Vickery. Good morning.
Morning, Don. How you doing? Morning, John. Ranianu Arnold.
What's that about, John? Care to share it with the rest
No, I
of us?
just like nickname him Ranianu. I think he's a racing driver who John's too young to remember.
He's
I'm
too
just
young,
sort of throw in.
Well done for throwing that in. Makes no sense to any of us either, and we're much older than he is. Of course, both Tim and John are representing players from over there playing in our leagues as well. No doubt we'll talk about the Champions League, gentlemen, if you don't mind.
No doubt. There's plenty of South American involvement. Not sure there's any North American involvement, is there?
Yeah,
apart from the Costa Rican goalkeeper.
At least they'll be watching it.
He can have the Costa Rican goalkeeper.
Okay.
He can have him.
Do you want to take him, John? Do you want to take him to start off with?
Yeah, well, Keylor Navas, it's been an interesting campaign for him, actually. He's been up and down. He's been really crucial in the matches I've seen him play for Real Madrid. But at the same time, it seems like they're not exactly keen on keeping him around. So it's going to be fascinating to watch the transfer saga all unfold. But obviously, his mind will be set on winning the title. As I said, I think he's been really big in big moments for the team. And his involvement with the national team is interesting because he's taken a lot of time off. He's had little injuries, little bothers. But Costa Rica is in love with Keylor Navas, no doubt about it. So I think that many Costa Ricans will be very pleased if he's able to have a good performance in the Champions League. But yeah, he's really our only CONCACAF representative we have in the final.
Well, you've talked about him. You may as well go home now. Good night, and I'll speak to you later. I'm only
Take
kidding.
care.
I'm only kidding. No, don't go.
There's a good point there which is being made. You know, in the Champions League final, it always used to be played Wednesday night. Now it's been shifted to the Saturday, and there's no doubt why that. You know, that is so you can get the biggest possible global audience. Because, you know, in our part of the world, me and John, you know, the Wednesday one, a lot of people will be at work because it's kind of afternoon, it's not evening. But having it on Saturday just frees it up, and it means you can get a much bigger global audience. And I'm convinced that the reason they shifted it to Saturday was to boost audience. You know, and Costa Rica is perhaps not the biggest the biggest one that they're thinking of. Certainly they're thinking of Asia, though. You know, millions and millions in Asia. And I wonder, long term, with the growth of China, the growth of Major League Soccer, I wonder how long it'll be until we have a more viable global competition that involves the European teams playing on a competitive basis, the teams from China and the teams from MLS and so on.
And you've already gloated and suggested that this is really a South American Champions League because so many players from over there are represented.
No, that would be harsh. I mean, it's a European occasion with Brazilian fullbacks.
Yeah, it's very nice of you to say it like that. We'll come back to that in a moment, I promise you. But I don't want to keep Ian in Oxford any longer because he's doing his finals now. Ian, good morning.
Yes, Dalton, how's it going, mate?
I'm very well, thanks very much. I hear you're a long-time listener.
Dalton and Tim, I started listening to this show when I was 11.
11?
11, so like 10 years ago. I used to stay up every Friday night, all listen to the podcast. So I've kind of grown up listening to you guys.
Okay.
Probably explains why I've gone so wrong down the line.
Okay, but you know that I'm going to test you.
We take full responsibility.
I've been here since days of the big wheel. I've seen change. I've seen empires rise.
Okay, I'm going to test you on this. You set yourself up. I'm going to test you on this. Well, tell me, first of all, you're about to take your big test in life, aren't you?
My last exam at uni tomorrow.
And you're in Oxford. Now, I need to ask, are you really at Oxford, or are you one of the fools up in the hill?
Well, I don't believe in that elitism, I think that's damning. We don't need any more. We don't need that Bullingdon boy attitude around.
So once again, are you at Oxford, or are you at, the place up the hill?
I'll go to Oxford. I'll go to Hertford College.
Okay, good for you, man. Good for you.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't have to go there because you don't believe in the elitism. You could have joined the people up at what was Oxford Poly, Oxford Brookes, whatever it's called now.
Don, I've got a philosophy. You got to learn the trick of the establishment to take him down. So, someone 3 years there.
Whoa! Hold the revolution just for a moment. Hold the revolution.
I can tell he's been a long-time listener now.
I know. I don't need to. But one question that I will ask him. You mentioned that you've been listening since the days of the Big Wheel. How long did the Big Wheel suggest that you need to have been contributing to this show before you get a Brazilian shirt name? How long? Okay, I'll give you a clue. Was it 3, 6, or 9 months? Because you might remember, if you were listening to the show when you were 11, somebody tried to get a Brazilian shirt name, and then the Big Wheel said, hang on a second.
He had to sing a song, didn't they? Who was the guy from, Texas or someone?
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I think it's 9 months.
Yeah, I think you're right. Congratulations. Yeah.
Genuinely. I rang in when I was 13. And my voice hadn't even broken. And I asked him about Leandro Damião, and I was bricking it. But and I remember.
You remember the question? The question is, does Tim remember the answer?
I think I probably do.
I think Tim, you said he was going to be the next big thing, mate. So.
Well, we're still waiting.
Go on, Tim. Show yourself up as always. Another Raphael Scheich moment, was it?
It's not far off, and he's nothing's happened to him at all. He can't get a game for Flamengo at the moment. Nothing ever happened to him, but he's gone to club after club after club that don't really need him, so he doesn't get any game time. It did look for a while. He was Brazil's centre forward in about 2009, and you thought, well, he's booked in for bed and breakfast. Not one of my finest hours. Thank you for reminding that.
But Ian, do you see, Ian, you have got the world's greatest sub-question there, because you asked the initial question 10 years ago, and you got the sub-question in 10 years later. Nobody's going to beat that.
I'm a disciple of Hashim and Abbey Wood.
Well done, mate. Yeah. You knew what my next question was going to be.
I didn't even know where Abbey Wood is, but I knew Hashim.
Everybody knows Hashim. Everybody knows Hashim, mate.
He's like a father figure to me. I just grew up with
Hashim. Of course, everybody knows Hashim. Anyway, Ian, you've got another question. Go ahead.
I do, yeah. This is for John. Good morning or good afternoon, whatever time difference is, John. So this week, Nelson Rodriguez, he's the manager of Chicago Fire, he lambasted how undiverse, a lack of diversity at the top of MLS football. And this kind of surprised me, because my understanding of the game in America is that, it's cultivated and created by immigrant communities. I suppose football all over the world, culture that comes up from below, but specifically in the American context. A game which is played and enjoyed by Latin American communities particularly. So I want to know, why is there this glass ceiling in the MLS, and what can be done to change that?
Yeah, absolutely. Nelson Rodriguez, the general manager at the Chicago Fire. It's interesting because, as you mentioned, correctly so, the story of football in the United States as the story of so many things in the United States, is one of immigrants coming and sort of bringing their culture and sort of adapting it and melding it together. But unfortunately, I don't think we've necessarily seen that, at least in the modern era of football, that melding together part. I think when you go to cities, a lot of times you'll see areas where there are white kids playing football, and there are areas where there are Latino kids playing football. And I don't know that there are a ton of both. One of the reasons that I think Clint Dempsey, one of the best American players we've ever had, still playing for the national team, and of course many know him from his days at Fulham and Tottenham. one of the reasons that I think he was able to sort of transcend and do something that a lot of Americans hadn't was the fact that he grew up in a city in East Texas, Nacogdoches, where there was no option. If you were playing football, you were playing with Latinos, with white kids, with African-American kids. There was just a mix that was forced by the demographics of the city. But I don't think we see that necessarily coming together on the field. Maybe that's changing. But what Nelson Rodriguez has correctly pointed out is that a lot of it, too, is in managerial status. When you look at the number of minorities coaching in Major League Soccer compared to the number of minorities making up the teams, making up the roster, it's a lot smaller. Now, I think some of that will just change with time, the fact that there's a lot of black players now, and maybe there weren't so many back in the day. So eventually they'll perhaps filter up and start to take those coaching roles. And Major League Soccer does, sort of similar to the NFL, have policies about interviewing minority candidates for jobs. So I think there are some things in place, but I think that we have in this country a problem with sort of recognizing the football community is a bit segregated. The Liga MX is the most watched league in the country, the Mexican league. However, you ask an Anglo fan about the most watched league in the country, that might not be what they pick. And I think it's a lot of times because the coverage is in Spanish, the coverage is in a different language, or maybe people who live in a different part of the country or a different part of the city even are the ones who are watching that game. So I think what Nelson's pointing out and what we need to be conscious of as a society is the fact that we do have these communities, but they haven't really grown together very well. I think MLS academies are doing a good job of changing that. I think the league, like I said, the rules that they're putting in place, but it's going to take more people like Nelson, smart people, members of minority communities saying, hey, why aren't there more people like me in these jobs to start to change? And it's not on them either. It's on the decision makers. But I think it's a step in the right direction that we're starting to see people speak out.
That's great, yeah.
Ian, you know what? You've been contributing to the programme since you were 11 years old. It's time we gave you a Brazilian shirt name.
Oh, God, this is the proudest moment of my life.
No, hang on. You haven't taken your finals yet. We'll be proud of you if you come down with the first. Are you on course for one? Be honest.
Theoretically, yeah. But
Be honest.
You know what,
Be honest.
I would bite your hand off for a 2-1 at this stage, Don.
A 2-1, yeah. Because
27 grand later.
Well, 27 grand, you see. You should have done it. You should have been a bit older. You'd have got it for free.
I should have waited a few months. Corbyn will be Prime Minister, got it for free.
Well, or you could have gone to a university in Scotland. You got it free there as well.
Too cold.
And good luck on the 2-1, because my brother went to Wadham on a scholarship and but he came down with a third in law.
Really?
Can you believe it? Yeah, because he just asked around whilst he was there. Anyway,
when did he go? He would have gone.
Oh gosh, he must have graduated about 88 or something like that, 90 maybe. I can't remember.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see his experiences because still not the most diverse.
I realise that. I realise that. So, what more do we need to know about you apart from the fact that you were 11 years old? This is for listeners, because listeners decide the Brazilian shirt name. It has absolutely nothing to do with me. I have absolutely no influence on it whatsoever. Yeah, right. 08085909693. We're looking for a Brazilian shirt name for young Ian. He's about to graduate from Oxford, hopefully with a first, but maybe with a 2-1. He's been phoning the World Football Phone in since he was 11 years old, and his voice hadn't broken yet. And don't give him no clever clogzo. We don't want that. Clever clogzio or something like that. I'm sure there'll be things like that coming. Give us a little bit more information on you, Ian.
I mean, I'm from Lewisham.
Lewisham, good place to be from. Which part of Lewisham? Where in Lewisham?
I live behind police station, largest police station in Europe.
What, it used to be just a little local police station. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Because you know where I lived? Do you know where I lived?
No, where did you live?
I lived on Adelaide Avenue.
No way. I live on Boyne Road.
You live on Boyne Road. And before that, I lived on Endwell Road up by Brockley Cross, the house I bought off the Shoe Bomber's mum. That's a long story. I won't go into that just now.
I went to Gordon Brook Primary School.
I don't remember the primary schools. I was a grown man in those days, Yeah, anyway, okay, so you grew up in Lewisham. What else?
I do history at uni. I'm a part-time Dulwich Hamlet fan, part-time Manchester United fan.
No, forget the Manchester United. Give us the other one again.
I mean, I'm a Pakistani from South London. Of course, I support Man United.
Gracious. Yeah, okay, go on. What else? Cockney Red. Or Pakistani Red, I should say. Yeah, why not? Okay.
I don't know what else. You put me on the spot, Don. I live quite a mundane life.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
What else?
No, that's good enough. It's good enough.
I'm from Lewisham. I'm 21.
And your first question was about who again?
Leandro Damião.
Okay, Leandro Damião, who has gone nowhere in football. So that might might give listeners an idea of what your Brazilian shirt name should be tonight. And our listeners never let us down. So the text number once more is 08085 909 693, or you can email upallnight@bbc.co.uk and tell us what Ayan's shirt name will be. Ayan, can we call you back about 5 minutes to 4?
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
Are you sure you're going to be up? Because I know what you students are like.
Actually, 5 minutes before. You know what, Don? I think I might try and get some bed before my exam tomorrow.
Oh, you've got an exam tomorrow?
Yeah,
it's his last final tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've got an exam at 2:30.
What, at Oxford, they give you exams on a Saturday?
I know. I had one on Bank Holiday Monday as well.
Okay, look, listen, you're going to have to listen to the podcast, but we'll all be having a laugh and a chuckle when we hear what your Brazilian shirt name will be. Make sure...
Honestly, guys, I'm so touched. Thank you so much.
No, it's a pleasure. Make sure you call us next week and we can talk about that shirt name of yours.
Oh, definitely. I'll be a free man.
Yeah, because we're...
lovely.
Good luck. Get to bed now. Goodness gracious. You've got an exam in the morning.
Oh, I know. I've got to write by Frans Fanon. It's right.
Ian, great speaking to you, mate. Great speaking to you. And good luck. So let's speak to Mick in Greenwich. Good morning, Mick.
Good morning, that young man will be too young to remember when Lewisham was under a dictatorship, eh? Wouldn't he? Yes.
You're absolutely right.
And it took me 13 years to get a Brazilian shirt name. I had to crawl and scrape and beg.
It took you 13 years?
Yeah. So while I was waiting for you to answer my call, I've just been playing with the organ. I haven't played with this since, when I rang you back in 2005.
And it is a mouth organ we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah. I can't play very well. I can blow and suck. There we go. Yeah. That's all I can do.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, I haven't phoned you for a while.
No, you haven't. You've been okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I mean, I said my diabetic nurse at Kidbrooke, she said I had to start going to bed at 10. Okay. I said the last time I went to bed at 10, my mum told me I had school in the morning. So we had a compromise, and she said, OK, midnight. I said, but I like to go on this programme and talk about football and things. And she said, OK, then, if you have to. How often do you do this? I said, once in a blue moon, once in a blue moon.
There was a little white lie there, wasn't there, that you like to come onto the World Football Phone-In to talk about football. That was a little white lie, wasn't it?
No, but I still listen every week. I normally record it and then I listen to it during the week. And listen, I couldn't believe it a few months ago. There was you talking, Dalton, you were talking about Harry Worth, who was very much of the 60s. Dick Emery, who was very much of the 70s. Yeah. Now, you know Tim doesn't like comparing drag artists from different eras.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, go on. Yeah. Where are you going to with this? Where are you going? You're going to Danny LaRue, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're going to Danny LaRue, bridges the 60s and 70s.
They're like Gerrard and Lampard. You couldn't have them in the same team.
How about Stanley Baxter? How about Stanley Baxter? Do you remember him?
In midfield, yeah. But I want someone to boss the midfield, so I've got Jay Edgar Hoover.
Okay, so we are talking about football then.
Yeah, and the back four would be the New York Dolls, and the manager would be David Bowie to make those all-important changes.
Very good. Yeah, you're on form tonight.
Hinge and bracket up front.
You know I'm going to get in trouble if we don't talk about football. You know that, don't you, Mick?
Oh, yeah, okay.
You know that.
Yeah. I've forgotten. It's been a long time.
I know it's been a long time. That's why I've forgiven you. But we do have to talk about football at some point or other in this conversation.
Tim?
Yes, mate.
Yeah. Answer me. You're falling asleep.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Listen, I've been watching Carlos Tevez. There's the last couple of games in China. And he looks really lost and out of form. And I was wondering if he'd take a pay cut to go back to Boca Juniors. And how much influence would his agent have on his decisions? Oh, at Lewisham Park.
Well, probably quite a lot.
For the previous caller, by the way, I lived in Lewisham Park.
Okay.
Just for the previous caller.
Okay, yeah. Now he sussed that out. Go on, let Tim answer. Go on, Tim.
I don't think he's the most adaptable of individuals, Carlos Tevez, and you really can't imagine him being happy in China. He has taken a massive entourage over there. It's almost like he tried to take a big chunk of Buenos Aires to China with him. I was told today by an Argentine journalist that amongst his entourage is his golf teacher. He has taken his golf teacher to China.
Don't get jealous, Tim. He can afford it. He can afford it. No need to get jealous now.
Yeah, sure. No. I have no need of a golf teacher since I don't play the games. I'm not jealous. I think it is going to end in tears before too long. And straight away they got kicked. They got eliminated from the Asian Champions League as soon as he got there. No, it wouldn't surprise. I think that there are two ways that this could play out, because I don't think he's going to stay there very long. One is, yes, he takes a pay cut to go back to Boca Juniors. The other is that he simply retires.
Okay, and thanks a lot, Mick. Good to hear from you again, and stay healthy as well. Look forward to hearing from you very soon. We've got Cleo, though, with us in Farnborough now. Are you, Cleo?
No, I'm still in Aldershot.
Okay, it says Farnborough, Hampshire.
The telephone link came up as Farnborough. Anyway.
Have you got one of those cheap phone lines that connects you to somewhere in Azerbaijan just so that you can get a free call?
I'm with a certain gentleman with a beard.
Yeah.
Has an airline beginning with V. I'll say no more.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay.
England are through to the quarterfinals of the Under-20 World Cup. The first time.
Yeah.
It's not yet. But they're playing in Mexico. Can John Tembert tell me who to watch out for? And the USA are playing Venezuela, and Uruguay are playing Portugal. So can Tim tell me? And belated happy birthday, Tim, for last week.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
That explains why I was wearing that cream-coloured whistle on the TV in Brazil earlier today.
Frankly.
Beige?
No, it doesn't.
Beige? Okay.
Yeah, no, there's no
double-breasted? Is that in fashion in Brazil?
Indeed.
Double-breasted, is it? Really?
No, not at all. I don't think you can get them in Brazil, double-breasted whistles.
Sorry, John, he keeps interrupting you when you're in your flow, so you go on.
Oh, no, that's all right. The Mexican U20 team, they've got a lot of players who I think have a lot of potential. Edson Alvarez is a player who played the Club World Cup, and so I think he's well-suited to play at the U20 team, sort of the fixture at the back for the Mexican team. And up front, there's a striker named Ronaldo Cisneros. That's been one of the things I've been most fascinated by, not necessarily how he's played, although he's played well, but how many kids, U20 players, are named Ronaldo. I guess it's just a huge influence, and they've maybe lived up to the name. I think, it's an easy joke for headline writers to say, oh, here's the new Ronaldo, but they're sort of working overtime. I think there's 8 or 9 different countries that have a Ronaldo on them. So anyway, those are the two players that I would look out for as players who could make a difference for Mexico. It's been a fine tournament for them. They haven't dazzled, I don't think necessarily. Maybe they haven't been to their top, but obviously to make it this far, they've got a fair bit of talent. So it should be a decent contest. I think it'll be all right.
And Tim?
The two South American sides who, going into this tournament, we had highest hopes for. Argentina eliminated in the group phase, which was not a great surprise, and Ecuador also. Uruguay and Venezuela. Neither of them have conceded a goal yet. And the stakes now rise for Uruguay against Portugal, who are looking strong. That promises to be a cracking game. Who to look out for from Uruguay? Well, especially Rodrigo Bentancur, lanky, left-footed midfielder, very versatile, very talented. Reminds me a little bit of a kind of left-footed Lucho Gonzalez, the Argentine former international. I like Chapacase a lot, very quick striker, looks like a greyhound. And obviously Facundo Waller. Fax Waller, he's been misbehaving in the midfield.
Very good.
I like that.
I was going to say he's been suckling the honeysuckle or whatever rose, but it didn't work.
With Venezuela, it's their greatest generation that they've had yet, and very, very exciting. That they should be favourites against the United States. I think a lot depends on the mental aspects. If Venezuela can cope with this favouritism after being maybe the outstanding team so far. The goalkeeper is great, Fariñez. Only problem is he's just a little bit on the short side. If it wasn't for that, maybe he will go on to be a truly world-class goalkeeper. But he looks promising. Yangel Herrera, who has been bought by Man City. I've been championing for a while. He's on loan at New York City. Is a real midfield powerhouse. He's going to be a big name in the game. I like little Soteldo, who dribbles with the ball tied to his feet. I like Peñaranda, who's an attacking midfielder with real thrust and strength. And should they both win, then there'll be an all-South American semi-final, Uruguay against Venezuela. But Venezuela, I think, favourites to get past the US, although John might disagree. Ooh. Uruguay will it's a real 50-50 struggle, I think, against Portugal.
John?
And they've got, sorry, real quick, Venezuela has Dudamel, the senior team coach, coaching the U20s, right, Tim?
That's right. Yeah, that's how important this is to them.
Maybe something to be said for him having influence on the goalkeeper as well. The U.S. has gotten a big boost that I don't know that many were expecting from Josh Sargent, who's only 17. He's from St. Louis, and he's been reportedly already off to the Bundesliga once he turns 18 next February. He's been a real breath of fresh air for the United States, a team that in qualifying, scored some goals but didn't necessarily have the look of a flowing attack. He sort of changed things up. They blew out New Zealand last round 6-0, so I know that Yangel Herrera is familiar being in MLS, but I think the U.S. will have a lot of confidence against Venezuela, even though their back line has been so stout, maybe getting a goal or two past them.
Is his name really Fat Swallow?
It's Facundo Waller, which obviously, let's abbreviate. Let's agree amongst ourselves that we can abbreviate Facundo to Fax.
Does he have anyone to talk to?
But he's got plenty of teammates.
No one to talk to all by myself. No one to walk with, but I'm happy on the shelf. Ain't misbehaving, I'm saving my love for you. For you.
I talked about him on the show when he got a yellow card in the qualifying tournament. That he had misbehaved on that occasion.
Yeah, and did I miss it at that time? Because generally this is the first time it's registering in my old mind. I'd have thought I'd have kicked that one to touch immediately.
You were doing that presenting job of like patting your head while rubbing your stomach. I think I managed to slip one past you, as I did Radio 5 in midweek about Brazil's first choice goalkeeper Alisson. I said his aim was true.
Oh, did you?
Oliver's Army picked it up. Oliver's Army managed to pick it up, but not the rest of, not the presenter or the people there.
Okay. What's this I hear in the background then?
Taking a break from the World Under-20 Cup to tinkle the ivories.
It's a faster version, you see. What a shame. Oh, it's the one with the long intro, by the way. He plays a whole tune first before he starts singing. So it might take a while. Yeah, I'm going to have to fill
Your commitment to delaying the 2:30 news is admirable on this one, isn't it? Well done.
This is a good version, actually, but it's taking... So, I'll tell you what, let's go. Let's save Fat Swallow for now. Hopefully we'll be able to get him back in a moment or two.
I'm all alone, baby, by myself. Darling, don't put me on the shelf. I must behave it. I'm saving my love for you. I don't stay out later, don't care to go. No. I'm home at 9, just me and my radio, darling. Yeah, I must behave it. I'm just saving my love for you.
Well, I haven't heard this version before. Fat Swallows ain't misbehaving. You're listening to the World Football Phone. You really are. And we're talking football in America, North and South, with John Arnold, our Neymar, who's taking care of North American questions and footballers from over there playing in our leagues, and the legend Dino, Tim Vickery in Rio, answering any questions on South American football and players from over there playing in our leagues as well. Earlier on in the programme, we heard from Ayan, who's been listening to the programme since he was 11 years old. He's going to take his finals later on this morning, his undergraduate finals at Oxford University. And we asked you simply, and he's from South London, yes, and he supports Man United, as you'd have guessed, as he's from South London. So we asked you, what Brazil's shirt name should we give him? Your options or your suggestions are really welcome on 85058 by text. Email upallnight@bbc.co.uk. If you don't know the format, basically we offer listeners who've made a great contribution to the programme over a period of time a Brazilian shirt name. Always recommended by you, the listener. We always have good ones. That's why John is the Neymar. Because he's like, he's from Texas, isn't he? Do you get it?
It's your fault, listeners.
Yeah, nothing to do with me. I enjoy saying it so much. You wouldn't know how much I enjoy saying it. Anyway, we've had some suggestions so far for what Ian's shirt name should be. How about Elevendinho? Because he started listening at the age of 11, says one listener. William in Epsom says Decadinho for the young man who's listened since he was 11. And on account of Ian's voice, says Neil in Ashford, because his voice hadn't broken when he asked his first ever question at the age of 11 on the show, Neil would like to go for Shrilayan, as in, like Will.i.am, but Shrilayan.
Absolutely brilliant.
That's not bad. It's not bad.
He's a clubhouse leader.
It's really creative.
It is at this time of the night. Paddy in Poplar says a third is what I always wanted instead of a boring 2-2. A third is a gentleman's degree. It says you didn't do any work, but you were still clever enough to get more than a pass, whereas a Desmond, that's a 2-2. Do you get it? Desmond 2-2. Implies that you worked really hard, but you weren't that clever, yeah? Says Paddy, yeah, but you haven't offered us a Brazilian shirt name. Anyway, David from Norwich says, as he started contacting the show so young, he should be called the Bambino. And, we've had one from John, which says his shirt name should be Ian Socrates Levandox. I don't know why. Well played, he says. Anyway, 08085909693, the number to call if you'd like to join in. And thanks also to Cleo, who was our last caller. We've got Stuart in Nova Scotia with us, though. Stuart, good morning.
Good morning, Dodden.
Good to speak to you, mate.
Yeah, good to speak to you too. Good morning to Tim and John also.
Morning.
Morning.
Yeah, this is first-time caller, so I'm super excited to be on.
Well, we're super excited to have you on as well. Well done.
I appreciate that, Dodden.
No, we genuinely are, because it's always interesting to hear how a first-time caller plays the game, as it were.
Well, I mean, all I can say is I've been listening to the show for 10 years. I've threatened to call in for a long time. I have had a few emails read out in the past, but to actually be on live and air, fantastic.
It's fantastic. Go on, then. What's your question? Let's see how you do this.
I've got maybe it's not a question, maybe more than an invitation for John Arnold. I had emailed in a few months ago about the Canadian Premier League. And when I had emailed in, the Canadian Premier League wasn't official, but it now is official. It has been confirmed by the Canadian Soccer Association, and Canada is going to have its own league. Not only that, but I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia, so Halifax is going to have a team. And the only thing we're waiting on is council approval, which should come within the next 2 or 3 weeks. And as John is the CONCACAF representative of the World Football phone-in, I think it'd be appropriate if he supported a team in this new league in his area. And I would like to officially invite John to be a supporter of the Halifax Wanderers.
John?
What do you think, John? What do you think?
I'm flattered. I'm touched.
You would be our number one fan, by the way.
I'm tempted. But I know there's a team confirmed in Hamilton that's named after a certain chain of donuts and coffee that I'm also fond of. I mean, that is tempting as well. So
we'll buy you donuts, we'll buy you coffee, we can go with it.
I'll say this. The Halifax team will certainly have a special place in my heart.
Oh, that's all it is here, John. That's it.
He's not ready to be committed, mate.
It's not full commitment. I definitely not full commitment, but it's something.
I think if you invite him to Halifax to see one of the matches and he feels the crowd, as it were, and also if you pay for his ticket, I think he'll be committed.
Definitely, I'll pay for his ticket. He can stay at my apartment. There's no problem there. And we've already got a great supporters club going on. We don't even have a team officially right now. Got a great supporters club going on. There may be 30, maybe 40 of us down watching the Champions League final tomorrow. And anytime John wants to visit Nova Scotia, I'll turn him up.
And Tim,
I really do hope to go, and I'm excited for Canada because I think this is very exciting. Of course, they have 3 teams in Major League Soccer that they're doing well, that they've established good academies, and they have a lot of young players who are playing abroad. Part of that is just Canada's openness to accepting immigrants from other countries. They're sort of able to capitalize on the football way. I think it's exciting. I think there's exciting times because of these sort of things coming together. So I'm looking forward to what the CPL is. I'll definitely try and visit as soon as I can. One sort of interesting note that I think is something relevant to the World Football Phone-In is that as an American journalist, I came up in university and even in high school starting to want to sort of take this on and be, a journalist. We were drilled to not take affiliation, not take a side and sort of hide. Very different to the convention. I know in the UK, most reporters are open about the club they support. And when I go to Central America, they cannot understand this. They don't get it. From our perspective, yes, I'm an American, but if I say that I'm supporting the U.S. national team, then if I criticize them in a column, maybe I'm not going far enough because you think I'm sort of showing favoritism. When I go to Panama or other countries, especially the smaller ones, the presenters on television are wearing the jerseys. They're cheering every goal. They're sort of the representation of the fans, where in the U.S., our perspective is a little bit more critical. We're trying to sort of see things with an even eye, even though that's sort of a game, because, of course, as an American, I would like to see America have success. And you know what? I'll let you guys in on a secret. I'm Halifax all the way. But don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone.
Love it, John. Love it.
Yeah, and you're wrong about commentators over here, John. They don't say, the commentators don't say which team they support. They'd have a hard time broadcasting if they did. Anyway, Tim, Stuart invites John, leaves you and I out. You and I are Billy No Mates tonight. or as Fats Waller would say, Tim.
Dalton, we already know that you've got invitations from Sligo Rovers, so you've already got your team.
This is true. But Fats Waller's singing mine and Tim's song. You know, the one that goes, no one to talk to or by ourselves.
Believe me, I don't stay out late, no place to go. I'm home about 8 at my little radio. Ain't misbehaving, saving my love for you.
Yeah, you see, we're saving our love. We may not get to Halifax with you, John, but we have seen the mountaintop. Jibril in West London is here. Stuart, thank you, by the way. Jibril, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing, fellas?
Very well, thanks very much.
Very well, thanks.
Okay,
and finally, Tim's going to get a friend. Jibril, you are his friend.
Oh, I'm his friend. I'm about to compliment Tottenham as well. So
you're Tim's designated friend tonight.
Actually, last time I rang, I think it was just before the Tottenham Man U game, and I kind of teased him about Man U winning, but I think the game finished 1-1, or was it 1-0? So a good team, Tottenham, really.
That hurt you to say that, didn't it?
No, I genuinely think they're a good team, really good team.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
My question is about a Brazilian player called Hulk. I think I've been watching him for a long time, but I was really surprised. He's only about 31 years old still, and every time I see him, I'm so impressed. He's built like a brick house. He's bullet fast. He can head. He can shoot. He's just got everything. I mean, every time I see him, I think he should be as good as people like Neymar and Gabriel Jesus. Personally, I think he's better than Diego Costa, for example. Technically, he's better than Diego Costa, I think. But I think he's had a spell at Porto and then Zenit St. Petersburg in Russia, but never really played for a top European club in either Spain or Italy or England. I'm just wondering why. Why has no one taken a punt on him? He's such a great player.
Well, I think maybe there are two things here. One is age, a little bit of a late developer. I mean, he's past the 30 mark now, so you can't imagine a major European club paying a lot of money for him because he just simply doesn't have a sell-on fee. So one could be his age, but and the other is that it would seem from the choices that he has made that his mate, and I'm not criticising him for this, but filling his wallet has been his main priority, and hence the fact that he's in China now. Now that's not something that I'm going to criticise, a lot of these Brazilian players, they end up having to support huge numbers of people, a huge extended family. There's that pressure on them to cash in. But certainly what you've said about him was certainly backed up to me by journalists based in Russia, because he played there for quite a while. And there was a time when he was out of the Brazil team and they just couldn't understand it because he was tearing it up every week in the Russian league. And he's a player who perhaps, he's played for Brazil on a fair few occasions, but he's a player who I think that Brazil could have made more use out of. And I think one thing that he did very well for the national team, and that they could have asked him to do it more, is to be the impact sub. It's not easy to be the sub. To come on and change the game, but he had the capacity to do it. He could come on cold, and because of the virtues that you mentioned, especially running against tiring defenders, he's so strong and quick, and you get him onto that left foot, and he can belt them in from 30 yards. So as space was opening up in the second half, I always thought he was a really, really good impact sub, and could perhaps still fulfil that role, although he's out in the cold at the moment.
Yeah, but what about when he was about 24, 25? I think he was with Porto at the time.
That's right.
Do you think that was a time that maybe a top team could have taken a punt on him?
Yeah, and that is the business model of the Portuguese clubs, isn't it? To get them over and then to sell them on at a huge profit. And Porto did this, but to Zenit. That's where he went, We just had an example this week of Benfica selling the Brazilian goalkeeper Ederson to Manchester City. Buy him, bring him over when he's a kid, develop him, sell him on for a huge profit, and that's the way that Benfica and Porto stay profitable. And in the case of Hulk, I think that they made they bought him from Japan, fattened him up. Figuratively speaking, because he's not fat, it's all muscle, and sold him on to Zenit. They made a huge profit, but that was him, I think, chasing the money. Now, he had to pay a price for that, because in Russia he did come up against the racism which is unfortunately prevalent in an undeniable factor in Russian football. But he did very well on the pitch. He scored lots and lots of goals, and then he's chased the money again, going to China. Maybe at the end of his career he will look back and think, perhaps I could have gone to the Western European leagues and got some more glory. But I'm sure his bank balance is a lot healthier than ours.
Yeah, he chased some money. Don, thanks for that, Tim. Don, I was wondering if I could throw a cheeky sub-question, Tottenham related to Tim as well.
Yeah, go on.
Pochettino, was he considered for the Argentina job? I know Sampaoli got it in the end, but was he considered?
No, not really. And I think he'd said that he's not interested at the moment. Sampaoli, who has just been presented yesterday, was always the number one choice. It's one for the future for Pochettino, but I think a long future. And Pochettino, I think, would consider himself, although he is a patriotic Argentine, he's 100% Argentine, he'd almost consider himself as a coach, a European coach. And European coaches, they tend not to want national teams. They want to do national teams either when they're rookies or when they're veterans. But when they're in their peak years, they want to be in the Champions League. And Diego Simeone, who you can't be a more patriotic Argentine than Diego Simeone, he made it quite clear that he didn't want the Argentina job yet. He wants to stay at Atletico Madrid, or maybe go somewhere else, maybe Inter Milan in the future, or something like that. But by and large, the European coaches, that's where they want to be. You can see that Sampaoli thinks differently, because he turned his back after 1 year with Sevilla. He turned his back on it. It will make it difficult for him to go back to Spain in the future, I think, because he's walked out of his contract, and that's involved long and complex negotiations. But you would still get that with some Argentine, and especially the Brazilian coaches. For them, the number one job would be to be the coach of their national team. European coaches see it differently. I think Pochettino now considers himself a European coach.
That was the most polite, cheeky question I've ever heard. But it was good, mate.
No, it's up by rating. He's a good coach. Hopefully he'll come to Man U in a few years' time as well.
That was the cheeky part. I forgot.
Just like Michael Carrick, just like Berbatov.
Exactly. That was good and cheeky, Jibril. I was wondering when the cheeky bit would come. Thank you very much for the call.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that, Jibril in West London there. Steve, just bear with us. I just want to read these other suggestions for the Brazilian shirt name for I Am this morning. Judith in Lincolnshire has gone for once, as in once in a lifetime. Holler guys, both Tim and John, if you like any of these, because they'll make it to the final cut, as it were. Bam Boxy, I don't get that, from Dave in Bath. How about a shirt name Oxford Bagzio or Oxford Baggio? That makes it even better, yeah. Ooh. That's from Al. That's not bad, is it? It should have to be Oxford Baggio. As in,
yes.
Do you get that, John? Do you know what Oxford bags are?
No, I don't think so.
They're trousers. Don't worry. That's not bad.
I feel like you guys have more terms for pants than just anyone. It's incredible.
We don't call them pants, believe me. Anyway, and seeing as he lives in London and supports Man United, how about Glory Huntiero? Not sure about that. From Huddersfield fan in darkest, deepest Yorkshire, he says it has to be Juninho for the shirt name.
And congratulations to the Huddersfield fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely to see you
absolutely, back. Yeah, absolutely. Decada, because he's been listening for 10 years. Is that Latin
or
something?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Well, decade is a commonly used word in the English language.
No, I know decade is, but decada. Come on, Tim. Thank you. Humiliate me, why don't you? Anyway, he's gone for Decado Jogo.
I've got 20 years of revenge.
I know. I'm in for the high jump. How about Decado Jogo? Is there a footballer that rings with Decado Jogo? Anyway, that's from Max.
Jogo is the game.
Okay.
What about is there something on being the graduate?
No, we haven't had a graduate
something on
one.
Being a graduate, something like that.
I've never had a graduate one.
I can't think of one myself. The kind of Dustin Hoffman, Benjamin.
I was thinking about that.
Thing.
I was thinking about Mrs. Robinson. You see.
Yes,
to
good
you,
point.
Mrs.
Good
Robinson.
Point.
If something like that would go, it would do well. It would do. Louise Ham says. Justin in Japan. I don't get that. Louise Ham?
That's something
Lewisham.
about the city he's from.
Oh, yeah, of course. Louise as...
Not technically a city, although Lincoln Greenwich probably disagrees.
Did you know every little village in America is a city? We all know that. Anyway, let's go to Steve in Scotland now. Steve?
Nutbush, a city with city limits.
It was, of course, and that's a tiny little town, isn't it? Steve, good morning.
Hi, guys.
You all right?
Yeah, good. How are we doing?
Doing very well, thank you. And thank you for taking the trouble to call as well. It's good to speak to you.
My pleasure. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller, so big fan of the show.
A lot of first-time callers tonight. I like it, mate. Yeah.
Good, but I've got a question for Tim, if that's okay.
Yes.
Cool. Tim, Saturday night sees two of the best fullbacks in the world, Marcelo and Dani Alves, come up against each other.
Yeah.
My question for you is, how are they regarded in Brazil with regards to the all-time great fullbacks, the likes of Cafu, Roberto Carlos? Are they held in the same regard as those guys, or do they miss that World Cup glory to put them up on that pedestal?
It's a great question, and they are in a tradition of Brazilian attacking fullbacks that goes back even further. And Brazil pioneered the back four, bringing an extra man into the centre of defence, and that pushed the fullbacks out wider, and it meant the fullbacks suddenly, they had more space in front of them and they could bomb forward. So they've been doing that ever since Nilton Santos from left back scored a goal in the 1958 World Cup, which at that time that was unthinkable for a fullback to charge forward and score goals. And there have been many on Carlos Alberto, the captain from 1970, a fellow who's not so well known, but Nelinho, who played in 74 and 78. He scored a goal in the 78 World Cup in the third place-off against Italy, when it curves so much. I remember arguing with my dad at the time because he just couldn't believe it. When he said, no, that took a deflection. It didn't. He curled it. Nelinho nearly had gangrene on his foot because he practiced so much, just scraping just 3 toes across the ball, and he put these fantastic curves on it. It's the Day of the Dog in Argentina, which my dog has just heard about, and he's decided to celebrate.
That's Didier Drogba, mate. Didier Drogba, right
Didier
there.
Drogba. Yeah. There are a couple who've been a little bit forgotten now, but were great as well. Jorginho and Branco, who played in 90 and 94. Fantastic fullbacks. And Jorginho was a better crosser than Cafu. Daniel Alves, he's collected so many European titles. I think he is seen in Brazil as right up there. Marcelo, not quite yet. He's a little bit in the shadow of Roberto Carlos, both for the national team, and also I don't think he's seen as eclipsing what Roberto Carlos did for Real Madrid. He hasn't played 50 times for Brazil yet, Marcelo, despite playing for more than 11 years. And he's only just scored his first competitive goal in a Brazil shirt. So I think he's still seen as someone who's got work to do to be put up on the level of the very, very greats.
Yeah, Steve, thanks for the call. As you can hear, Tim's got to go and see a man about a dog. 08085 909 693 if you'd like to join in the phone in. 08085 909 693. The number to call if you'd like to join in the World Football phone in this morning. It's 08085 909 693. We're talking football in America, North and South, with, on the one hand, Neymar, John Arnold. And you're in Fort Worth, are you?
In Dallas, close
enough. In Dallas, sorry. I keep forgetting you've gone back to Dallas now. In Dallas, Texas. And he's taking care of any questions on Major League Soccer, North American football, CONCACAF region, Central American football, and that kind of thing. And the legendary Tim Vickery, he's got an easier job in comparison because he's only taking care of, 11 countries or whatever it
10.
is. Is it only 10 in South America?
Yeah,
10.
Yeah, 10 and not
10.
one more.
Not one more, okay. Good to know, good to know. I'll keep that in mind in future when we consider how much you're getting paid for this. And you're getting paid so much on TV nowadays, it's about time you bought me a drink in any case.
I don't get diddly squat for it.
Really?
I can't.
For all that TV stuff?
Yeah.
What, you bought a
So
new
all that-
suit and
yeah,
everything for it?
A boy, yeah. That's the bane of being on a journalist visa. I can't earn money from Brazilian sources.
No.
I might have to get married, just to prove that romance isn't dead.
Well-
I might have to get married. She's been putting up with me for 21 years for crying out loud.
yeah.
I might have to get married just so I can earn a buck for getting up
In
early, going
that
on Brazilian
kind of-
TV and wearing very nice suits.
In that kind of Ronnie Biggs way, because he had to get married so that he wasn't deported
That's
back
right.
to the UK.
That's
Do you remember
right,
that?
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I do.
Okay, yeah. So we might need a new Brazilian shirt name for you then. I can think of one now because so many footballers are called Ronaldo, as we heard earlier, and all it needs is, a big...
there's a few Linekers over here as well.
Linekers?
Yeah, a few. So that
Are there
made an
any?
impact.
Are there any Hopinos? Because
Not yet.
Anand
There
is saying.
could be.
Anand is saying, how about Hopino as our young intrepid undergraduate? Ayan is, a South London Manc, essentially, so he hops from South London to Man United. And Mark is suggesting that his Brazilian shirt name should be Mundaneo because he did say that life in Oxford University is mundane. Another Mark has gone for the shirt name Plastinho because it's a graduate-related shirt. Now, I don't get the Plastinho bit. But sounds like
it's a fabulous bit from The Graduate. It's one of my favourite bits of The Graduate when he's graduated, and I think it's a friend of the family or an uncle or something that takes him aside and says, "Benjamin, I've just got one word to say to you: plastics."
Oh yes, of course.
yes.
Oh, see,
that's where that reference comes from.
Sorry, John?
I thought it was just calling him like a plastic fan because he's not supporting his local, that kind of thing. Maybe it's a sort of triple level.
It's a nuanced shirt name. Indeed. That's very good. Well, you like these others as well, quite a few others. How about Leagues 11, says Colin. Graduano from Dansky in Swansea. I like this one from Max. Est Studentiantes.
Yes.
Very good. What about shirt name either Gradox or Oxgrado? Yeah. That's from Paul in Slough. Decadonio, Dec for 10 years, Don for Oxford. Yeah, I get it. Stephen Aberystwyth. Decadonio, or maybe even Don because a couple of people have mentioned that. Academio says Sean in Cambridge. And Nevellino, says Bernard in Newcastle. Hang on. Nevellino, if your listener was 11 when he first made a contribution, spell 11 backwards with a slight adjustment. Bernard, you're taking this too seriously, mate. Oh, we've had another one for Estudinho this time. Estudinho. And that's from Peter in Caithness. And, another Mondano one there. Okay. I should tell you before we go on, I do want to get calls as well, 0808 5909 693. I just want to remind you of the big football extravaganza that's taking place tonight at the home of non-league Curzon Ashton FC. It's the non-stop Manchester Match Marathon. Tonight and throughout Saturday, hundreds of seven-a-side football teams have taken part in a 24-hour football fundraiser to raise money for the victims of the Manchester bombings in which 22 people died. Teams will be playing until 7 o'clock this evening. That's 7 o'clock Saturday evening. And those taking part include legendary Manchester United midfielder Paul Scholes and former WBA lightweight champion Anthony Crolla. As you'll hear, it may be all in a terrific cause, and it may in some cases literally be men against boys, but that hasn't stopped Paul Scholes, for one, from giving his all. It's the brainchild of Simon Cooper, who's head coach at the Oldham Athletic Football Academy. And I asked him how many teams are taking part altogether.
You're possibly looking at over 300 teams in total. We've divided the pitches up into 3 pitches for our slots. So then they're playing half an hour each, 7v7, with substitutes roll on, roll off. And then the Summer League play, which is the kids 4v4, 5v5, 7v7, 9v9. So in total we'll probably have 2,500 kids and adults and disabled kids and kids from all backgrounds playing football in those 24 hours.
And are people taking it in the right spirit, or do they want to win?
Unbelievable. Paul Scholes upended an under-6.
No.
He wants to win. I'm telling you, he did. And then he got a boo, and then he upended another one. But the kids loved it. He was brilliant with it. And we've got to be careful, so we put him with the under-6 because we're well aware he's got Michael Carrick's testimonial next week. So we didn't want to put him with the adults. So he found his level. If he's blowing, we had to get him a new T-shirt because he was sweating cobs because the under-6 were running rings round him.
Are you sure that that's Paul Scholes and not Boris Johnson?
No, it's definitely Paul Scholes. Listen, you know what he's like as a player? If someone went past him, he got fed up, and every now and again he got a red card. He's not changed with the under-6s from Boston Tigers.
He hasn't changed. He hasn't.
No, he's a winner, isn't he? He's a winner.
Yeah, of course. Well, that must have been a laugh.
Yeah, all the parents were laughing. The kids were laughing, and do you know what I mean? He was high-fiving him. He was brilliant.
It's for a really good cause. Simon Cooper there, head coach of the Oldham Athletic Football Academy. As I say, that non-stop 24-hour football tournament is continuing as we speak. And you can, if you've got the time and you're up this side of the country, go to non-league Curzon Ashton's FC's ground, and you'll be able to watch and take part as well. But what about that, John Arnold? A footballer, an ex-footballer, still unable to let go of, the competitive spirit. Do you find that stateside as well?
Oh, absolutely, especially in coaching. Some of the coaches I know still play games, inter-squad and that sort of thing, and going pretty hard. I won't mention any names because actually I think he's a little embarrassed by it, but there's a coach that I cover who took a little injury, and I asked him a couple of weeks later when I saw him, hey, how's that injury? No, what? No, I didn't. No. Yeah.
We've got Anand in Delhi. Good morning, Anand.
Good morning, Dutton. How are you, Mike?
I'm all right, thank you very much. Good to meet you.
Boa noite, team. Hi, Paul. Hi, John.
Boa noite.
Hey.
And I should say New Delhi rather than Delhi as well. Huge difference between the one and the other, isn't there, Anand?
No, I'm the same guy, right? So I'm from...
Okay. That's good for me, Yeah, go ahead. You got a point to make.
Yeah. I mean, right now, Delhi is pretty hot. So in India, we have end of May, in June. I don't know you guys there in Britain.
What's that?
You missed it. It happens to all the... I mean, this was about this June will be the end of the May.
Really? Why?
Now you missed the reference to the Wonga, mate.
Oh, right, okay.
So
Apologies. Very good, very good.
So, okay. So tonight we have a Champions League final, right? So there will be 22 players. And 40 years ago, and it can go to the penalty shootouts, which often happen these days in finals, like it happened last year too.
Yeah.
40 years ago, there's a guy from Czechoslovakia, and talking about living in dictatorship, which the other guy said, 40 years ago, Czechoslovakia was a dictatorship. So 40 years ago, there's this guy who did a panenka. Just a second. Oh, sorry.
Is that a call from your missus or something?
No, I just... okay. So 40 years ago, there's this guy who did a panenka. So my question to both Tim and John is today, among the 22 players who are going to play tonight, which, skill can be named after a certain player? I mean, the only suggestion I could come up with is missing an open goal, and you can do a Higuain in the final.
Oh, cruel.
Okay, do you want to go with that first, John? I don't know.
Yeah, I like...
what is a panenka, by the way?
You're asking me?
You asking me?
Yeah, Anand, what is a panenka?
The panenka is, you remember Euro 2012 World football match between England and Italy.
Yeah.
So the kick which Pirlo took, when you wait for the goalkeeper to dive, and then you just lob the ball in the goal.
Of course. That's a panenka. Okay. So, John, do you want to take that answer first?
Yeah. It's ostentatious, it's showy, and it's risky, because if you do it wrong, you look like a real fool. But the man himself, Antonin Panenka, so it's the namesake. Which player on the field? I think there's two. I'm not 100% sure. I think that Cristiano Ronaldo, that stance that he does before he takes the free kick, I think that's so... I think there's a certain...
now, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's the word I'm looking for. It's iconic. You see kids imitating it on the field when they are starting to take free kicks now. So I think that maybe we'll look at that and say, he's maybe not doing a Cristiano Ronaldo, but I think maybe even 20, 30, 50 years from now, commentators might say he's standing in that Cristiano Ronaldo stance. The other one, I'm not sure if there's a move particularly. I think that Dani Alves has a certain way about him, a certain something that maybe other fullbacks don't necessarily do, or at least it seems like he's been doing things differently in the past couple of games, at least in the Champions League for Juventus. Tim would know that better than me. So I'll say the Ronaldo stance and maybe pass it to him and maybe say Alves, to me, has been doing something different, but I don't know if I can put my finger on it.
Of course, once upon a time, Tim, the Cristiano Ronaldo would have been doing 20 step-overs, wouldn't it?
Yes. It's cruel on Higuain, but 3 finals in a row, and it's happened to him and every time with the national team. I was writing about this a couple of days ago. Imagine going back to 1986, Ananda's taken us back to 76 with the Panenka penalty, but 86, the World Cup final, Argentina against West Germany, as it then was. And Argentina open up a 2-0 lead, but the Germans come back and equalise. It's 2-2. Maradona, who has hit heights of genius in the quarter-final against England, the semi-final against Belgium. In the final, he's got young, dynamic, highly talented Lothar Matthäus playing against him and trying to cancel him out of the game. And so he can't exert the same influence that he's had on the quarter-final and the semi-final. And then at 2-2, he manages to spin away from Matthäus and he plays this gorgeous pass behind the line. And it's Jorge Burruchaga 1-against-1 against the German goalkeeper. And we know that Burruchaga scored, and that's 3-2. But let us imagine that Burruchaga missed. Let's imagine that he put it wide, or that the goalkeeper came out and made the save, and that Germany, with the momentum behind them, had gone on to win that game. the myth of Maradona would have taken a serious dent, wouldn't it? You know, because part of the prestige of Maradona was he won the World Cup in '86, and now you think, well, Messi must look sometimes and think, well, you know, Maradona had Burruchaga and I have Gonzalo Higuain. 3 finals in a row, and the big chance has gone to Higuain and he's missed it every time. But there's one moment of Higuain which stands out for me for those 3 finals. And I was in the stadium for all of them, and it's the first of those, which is the World Cup against the Germans in 2014, because and Higuain had his chance and made a hash of it, but he also had one and he put it away in fine style, and he went behind the goal. It was right behind it was close to where I was sitting. He went behind the goal and he roared his triumph. He'd scored in a World Cup final. He was celebrating. He was getting every last bit out of that moment, and everyone else in the stadium, all the other 21 players and all the crowd, they all knew that the flag was up and the goal had been disallowed, but he didn't know, and he was still there celebrating and punching the air, and that was a real come down. So that's a move, celebrating the non-goal, which for me will forever be linked to Gonzalo Higuain. I hope it works out differently for him, because I would love Buffon to win tomorrow night. I think he's been a great goalkeeper. Be interesting to see if it does go to penalties, if any of the Real Madrid players have the cojones necessary to do a Panenka against Buffon. Zidane did it. You know, Zidane did it in the shootout in the 20s, and it worked. It was a risky one. It went in off the bar, if you remember, because he was against Buffon. You've got to get it right. But if it goes to penalties, John will probably disagree wearing his CONCACAF hat. But if it goes to penalties, you'd back Buffon over Navas, wouldn't you, John?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, like I said, Navas has been inconsistent this year. A great goalkeeper, and CONCACAF can pride itself on having phenomenal goalkeepers. But Buffon, I mean, yeah, especially with the mystique behind him, and he's another class. I think it's fine to say, even I can admit that Buffon probably has to have the edge, definitely psychologically. Navas, a great keeper, but not the kind of player who you look at and say, my goodness, there he is. It's that guy I grew up watching, and now here I am in the Champions League final. I have to get it past him. I think that's what goes through the mind when you see Buffon there.
I think celebrating the non-goal is known as a Sol Campbell, isn't it? You know, remember when he thought he'd scored for England and he... Oh, right, he just, that's another one. No, yes. That's a Sol Campbell. Yes. I mean, you had to feel for him. It would have been his only goal for England, and he was so delighted. I mean, his tears were almost coming down my eyes when I saw it. I thought, oh, Sol Campbell, and then it snatched away from him. It was a horrible moment. It was a great celebration. And thank you for the call. Lee in Sydney, in Australia. Good morning, Lee. Hello, Lee. Oh, we had Lee there, but I think we've lost him there. Oh, Lee.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you now. Yeah. We were just about to start waltzing Matilda, so I'm glad you came on.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for taking my call. Really enjoy the show. You guys do a phenomenal job. And in terms of football knowledge, so impressed. I'm a dedicated Arsenal fan, and we'll watch the games at some silly hours. Watch the FA Cup probably at 2:30 in the morning last week. Great result. With Wenger signing the new contract, I think a lot of Arsenal fans are angry, but we're looking at the club now and we're looking at weaknesses and what we're going to go and do in the market. I think one of the things people can agree with, that we really struggle with the centre-backs, and I suppose one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys is, in your region at the moment, are there any centre-backs that Arsenal should be looking at? And number two, if they're going to be taking these centre-backs on, what prices are we going to be looking at?
Oh. Okay, well, let's start with North America and the CONCACAF region, because that's, Arsenal do like a bargain, don't they, Lee?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, you're not the only ones. You're not the only ones.
Probably the best example.
Yeah. You're not the only ones who like a bargain. Everybody does. So what about in North America, in the CONCACAF region? Anybody that might catch Arsene Wenger's eye then, John?
Yeah, I think it's rough. I mean, a lot of times with the biggest teams, unfortunately for CONCACAF, there's not necessarily a player who fits the bill, or at least is the right age. I would say that the top 3 center backs right now in CONCACAF maybe are probably Hector Moreno, the Mexican who plays at PSV. He's a player who I think, had he not been injured right after that, in the 2014 post World Cup, when a lot of players are making big moves after the World Cup, I think he might have gone to an even bigger club. But yeah, I don't know that he's maybe a little bit too old to make a move. Omar Gonzalez, the American, had a phenomenal season with Pachuca. They won the CONCACAF Champions League. He was a big part of that. He's still occasionally sort of, it's strange because for 1 or 2 minutes, it seems that he'll switch off and make a mistake. 28 years old, you could definitely, again, the price would be right, but I'm not sure that he would be able to play week in, week out with a team with top 4 aspirations. And John Brooks, who just moved within the Bundesliga for America, the United States. So I'm not too sure that there's anybody that I would say is of Arsenal caliber. If they wanted to make a buy, they certainly, I think, would probably be able to pick up one of those 3, but I'm not sure any of those 3 are quite at the quality. They're good, maybe even Premier League quality, but I'm not sure that they would be able to crack the Arsenal team.
How about Mexico?
Yeah, Moreno. I mean, I think, and Gonzalez plays his club football in Mexico. So
okay.
I think those are 2. There's another player, Diego Reyes, who had a decent second half of the season with Espanyol in La Liga. Porto has his rights still. He's a player that I think Mexico has a lot of hopes for, but every time it seems that he makes some sort of error. Even in the friendly that Mexico played with Croatia, he was a starter. He was sort of this is your game, and you could break out. You're the guy in charge. Rafa Marquez was on the bench. Hector Moreno was playing, but sort of playing alongside him. And Reyes passed the ball inexplicably right to Croatia. Croatia scores. Croatia wins the game. So he's just too mistake prone, I think, to make a Premier League move right now.
Yeah, he's not going to make Arsenal if he's mistake prone. Well, what about in South America, Tim? Any other? I think Sanchez is out there for Arsene Wenger.
Well, I'm going to give you 3 names playing in South American football at the moment. It's a difficult position to adapt to from South American football to top-class European football because the game is so much quicker and you have to play so much higher up the field usually. But the names I'm going to give you, I think, can cope, although one is very much for the long term. In pole position, a Colombian who I know has really impressed John in the past, called Yerry Mina, who plays now with Palmeiras in Brazil, who is a giant, cleans up in the air, is quick along the ground, can play out of defence, will burst forward, and looks like the kind of centre-forward who could slot into European club football. He's got enough international caps, I think, for a work permit, perhaps not to be a problem. The problem is, though... You
meant centre-back, didn't you? Centre-back?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, centre-back, yeah. And the problem is, though, that Barcelona are interested, so there's some serious competition there. Another Colombian, but one who's very much for the long term, is a 17, 18-year-old called Carlos Cuesta of Atlético Nacional in Colombia, who, of his type, is one of the best young centre-backs I've ever seen. And his type is the much smaller, kind of Baresi type, Franco Baresi type. Now, there's a long, long way to go for him, but at his age, he just exudes authority. You'd wonder a little bit about him for top-class European football, in that you'd wonder if he's big enough to play in the centre-back position, but he would certainly be one for the long term. Another one who might be worth a look at is a fellow called Gabriel, Brazilian, who plays for Atlético Mineiro. Hasn't been in the first team very long, but looks very classy. Looks like a kind of local version of Thiago Silva, the Brazilian centre-back who plays for Paris Saint-Germain, who would certainly be worth a look at. And it would mean that Arsenal could have the possibility of fielding 2 Brazilian centre-backs called Gabriel, which would confuse the opposition no end.
So you're the Gooner, Lee. Apart from the jokes from Tim, which one of those do you take? Would you most likely to have?
I'd take probably the third one. To be honest, from South America, I think he'd be a really good fit, and I think that would be what we're looking at. And just kind of a side question: Are there any kind of players you think Arsenal should be targeting within those regions where you think actually this guy is an Arsenal player, not just in terms of calibre, but maybe even price?
John?
Honestly, I don't know Arsenal really well enough to say. I think the next player from my region that might make a big splash is Irving Lozano. He's a Pachuca winger. He's 21 years old. He's been playing in the first team since I think he was 17. He's been a regular in Mexico for years and years and years. The rumors have him going to Celta Vigo in Spain. I think it probably better suits him there. Maybe La Liga might be a better fit than the Premier League, but I think he's a player who will be, sooner rather than later drawing sort of big comparisons. He's a winger. Again, I just don't know what Arsenal needs. But if they needed a fast little winger who could play on the left side, Irving Lozano would be the ticket. I think he's the next player from CONCACAF who makes, similar to the impact that Christian Pulisic, the American, has made this year with Borussia Dortmund and helping with their Champions League campaign and helping in the Bundesliga. I think that the team that gets Lozano, if it's Celta or another European team, will be getting a real gem.
And Tim?
Defensive midfield, I think maybe Arsenal could do with some strengthening there. There's one who I think is worth a look. He's another Colombian. He's moved to Boca Juniors in Argentina, where he's an idol. Left him out for the game against River Plate and really paid the price for it. It reminds me a little bit of a young Mascherano, which is praise indeed. His name is Wilmar Barrios. It would be a huge step up, but I think there's real potential there.
Lee, thanks a lot for the call, mate, and good luck. Great to hear from you. Make sure you call again as well. Just out of interest, Tim, is Luis Felipe Scolari the man, or perhaps the manager, who has moved the most from clubs to club? Because apparently he's moved to 26 different clubs, and Colin is saying his wife must love him for moving house every year or so.
Yeah, indeed, yeah, but that's standard practice in Brazil. If it's just as well that these days you can put a CV on email, because if you needed paper to do it, Brazilian coaches would know you'd have to cut down so many trees just for the CVs of a Brazilian coach.
And talking of Scolari, guess what Colin's suggesting for Ayan's Brazilian shirt name?
Go on.
Luis Felipe Scolari, is that it?
No, just Scolaro.
Okay.
Not bad. It's not bad, is it?
He's a scholar. Yeah, he's a scholar.
Yeah, it's not bad. 08085909693 is our number for the last 23 minutes of this phone-in. And I've got lots and lots and lots of suggestions for a Brazilian shirt name for our young listener, Ayan, who's graduating, or at least taking his finals later on this morning. Hopefully he'll graduate sometime. Well, he will graduate. You get to university, you're going to graduate, aren't you? Graduate sometime this summer. Here are some of the suggestions that have come up in the last few minutes, gentlemen, and do holler if you like any of them. Some of them need a little bit of thinking about. Dennis in Grantham has also gone for Scolaro, by the way. This one is to take some thinking about. This is from Daphne in Islington, who has gone for either Ayan Bola or Socratonzi, which Socratonzi would be an 11-year-old Socrates, would it, in Portuguese, Tim? Socratonzi?
No, I don't get the Tonzi part of that.
You don't get the Tonzi.
But there you go.
How about the Ayan Bola? It's a good one. It's a good one. And remember, Daphne is...
For me, there's two that stand out for me so far.
Yeah.
One is Shril Ayan, which I think is fantastic, and Oxford Baggio.
Okay, we'll come on to those in a moment. But what about Ayan Bola? Do you get what she's getting at there?
No.
Ayan Bola. Think of Daphne's in Islington. Yeah. And that's where a certain North London team plays, yeah? Ayan Bola.
Yeah.
Ayan Bola came from Everton, red hair, high voice, high-pitched voice, just like Ayan when he was a kid. Alan Ball. Anyway,
Alan Ball?
Yeah, it takes too much of thinking, doesn't it? How about Examos? Yeah. Examos, says Mark, in Farnham in Surrey.
There, but it's still behind Shril Ayan or Oxford Baggio for me.
Hang on. Well, you haven't got to the end of it yet. I am, says Hassan in St Leonard's. His first name sounds like I am. So how about Spartacus? At least got a tickle out of you, a little bit of a tickle. Yeah. You're not convinced, are you? Okay. And
no, it is one of the great cinematic moments.
Of course
it's still behind Shril Ayan and Oxford Baggio for me.
And Respecta Mundo 10 says down in Southport, because after all, he's been listening to the show for 10 years and he's a student, graduate from Oxford. Both great achievements. So Respect to Mundo 10.
Indeed. We've raised him man and boy.
Kid me not, says Dansky in Swansea. Kid me not, yeah. Anyway, we'll come back to those. Some are still coming in. Let's have a quick fire round, though, guys, of questions. Some of these questions are quite long, I'll warn you, but if you can be as succinct as possible with your answers, then we'll get through quite a lot. Owen says, I'm Owen, the Irishman living in Oregon, USA. I'd like to ask Tim about how he'd improve the Brazilian league system if he was in charge, as he's always given out about the structure. And for John Arnold, do you think the USL splitting into Division 2 and 3 is a good idea? I'd rather see 4 conferences with lower travel costs. Tim first.
Got to change the structure. Got to do away with the state championships as they're currently constituted, and have a calendar that starts with the start of the National League. I think that is the biggest change necessary, because at the moment the country is kind of, it's a huge country which is spending months splitting itself up into 27 Paraguays.
And John?
I didn't quite catch that. The USL, I think, is still Eastern-Western, and they are sort of trying to minimize the travel with more teams. Maybe I missed the question there.
The point was, do you agree with them dividing the leagues up into 2 and 3, 3 different leagues, I think it is, rather than 4? Because he'd have gone for 4.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not really sure.
Okay. Bill in Astoria in New York says United States plays Venezuela in the quarterfinals, as you've already said, John, of the Under-20 World Cup on Sunday morning. Do you believe that the growth of Major League Soccer's youth development academies is responsible for the Under-20 success?
Good question.
I think responsible might be a bit too much. I think it's certainly helped overall development. But then again, when you look at some of the players who are part of that, some of them have gone to Europe as quickly as possible. Others come from outside the MLS system. So I think it's definitely bolstered and strengthened. But I'm not sure that can be pointed to as the only reason that the U.S. is at this stage of the U20s.
Errol wants to know who your favourite lumbering centre-back in South American football is, Tim. Lumbering,
there are so many. Yeah. There are so many. And you see centre backs who are kind of lampposts turn quicker than that. The Emoko Curdiz turns quicker than some of the centre backs that they have in South American football. I don't really have too many of them as favourites, but I suppose if I have to name one, it would be Alexis Enriquez of Atlético Nacional, the captain of Atlético Nacional in Colombia, who is classy, he can play out from the back very, very well. And when the fellow who's now in charge of Mexico, Juan Carlos Osorio, and he's a fascinating coach, quite an eccentric figure, who spends a lot of time out on the touchline writing little notes. Mm-hmm. He looks a little bit like Stan Laurel, and he writes these little notes. I've never seen any other coach do it. And Enriquez was always his captain at Once Caldas, and then when he moved to Atlético Nacional, he took Enriquez with him, and he was always the captain, and he was always the man who received these little notes. So, Osorio would hand the little notes to the winger or the fullback, and they'd run in and they'd give them to Enriquez, and Enriquez would unravel the note and then pass the instructions. And for being able to understand what Osorio was scribbling at the side of the pitch, and for playing the ball out so classily, Alexis Enriquez is hereby declared my favourite lumbering South American centre-back.
Alan in New York wants to know, John, if he says the US Soccer Federation is considering spending its entire $100 million surplus to build a single national centre along the lines of St George's Park or Clairefontaine in France. Do you think this is the best way to develop football? Would more decentralised efforts yield better results?
I think more decentralized results, yes. Decentralization, I think, is better when you have a country as large as the United States. It's just, I think logistically it makes things easier. I understand the allure of trying to mimic what France specifically has done. But when you look at, the United States sort of tried to do a similar project with Bradenton. So, and they're now moving away from that. So I think that, the MLS academies have helped a lot. And if the national team wants to sort of follow suit with some sort of facility, I think maybe trying to break it up with a country as large as the United States is maybe the way to go.
And Tim, Higuain's success, is Higuain's time at Juventus being seen as a success or not in Argentina, Rishi, in Newcastle?
No doubt about it. No doubt. No, in fact, apart from those three finals for his national team, and he's got a record as a goal scorer, which is very, very good. And especially, I think he's stepped up in the last couple of years. I think he's lost a little bit of weight, and he stepped up. But I felt so sorry for him. The third of those three finals, the Copa Centenario in the States last year, where the big chance of the game, and who's it fall to? It falls to him, and he wastes it yet again. He puts it wide. He'd scored twice in the semi-final. He scored twice in the quarter-final. You're thinking, if I could, I would have blown the ball in, and his goal-scoring record for Napoli and now for Juventus in decisive games is good. And his debut for Argentina came in a decisive game when Argentina was struggling to qualify for the 2010 World Cup. He scored in that one as well. So I will take the fact of failing in three consecutive finals as an unhappy coincidence. I'll be very happy if he scores tomorrow.
Yeah, John, Gerard in Victoria in Canada wants to know, you kind of answered part of it before, what you think of the new Canadian Premier League.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's exciting. I think that, Canada can support teams beyond the three they already have in Major League Soccer. Ottawa's doing well in the USL. So I think it's going to be great for Canada. Honestly, they've got it's similar to the United States. It's such a big country. I think it's difficult to try and develop players in just one or two spots. I think it'll be good for the development of the game and sort of fans being able to get behind a local team. I think good times are on the horizon for Canada, national team wise and league wise. I
say Juve's overpriced. I've loved the 11-10. Says somebody in Blackburn. Now I'm all old. Let's talk about James Rodriguez, somebody that I know actually exists. Says Nelson in King's Cross. Has his career stalled?
Well, this is the problem, isn't it, with going to Real Madrid? And a few big-name players who've gone to either Real Madrid or Barcelona have faced this problem, that, they can only pick 11. And of those 11, only so many can be the absolute key important players in the team. And James, I think he wants to be a key important player, and he can't be. You're worried for him when they've got Gareth Bale and him. How many attacking left-footed midfielders do they need, and can they fit in and can really be important? I hope for him and for the game as well that he does move on to somewhere where he can be important. Now it's worked for, say, Alexis Sanchez, who was in that very same problem at Barcelona. Couldn't be important, has gone to Arsenal and has been important. And I think we all benefit from the top players being important with top teams. And I'm not sure he can be at Real Madrid as it's currently constituted.
Yeah, okay. Could you please ask Tim to tell us about Sao Paulo's left-back, Junior Tavares, who's currently a target for Ajax?
Good player. He was a problem kid. Who Sao Paulo seem to have sorted out this year, who's in that tradition of attacking left backs, and he's had a really good first 5 months of this season. The club officially, and the coach said that he has no knowledge whatsoever of any bid coming in from Ajax. Although it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was on Ajax's radar screen. They look very carefully at what they need from South America. Now they bought from the same club from Sao Paulo. They bought David Neres, a talented but very raw winger, came off the bench against United in the Europa League final. But one who impressed more, I think, was the centre back Davinson Sanchez from Colombia, who is quick. And that's what they were looking for that position. It doesn't surprise me that Junior Tavares is on their radar screen.
Yeah, and one of our listeners, Samuel, wants to know how Ramadan affects players and teams in your respective regions. Does it have much of an impact on football?
Zero.
Zero in South America. What about North America?
A few. We've got some players, whether they're born in the United States or coming from abroad, who MLS players. I know some of them make a decision. I believe that some, there's some strains, I guess, of Islam where it's athletic exceptions are made, but some players I know have played through it. I think it's an incredibly difficult thing, especially because I think some people don't even take water. But of course, American sport in general, we saw some NBA players do it, and so it's difficult, I'm sure. But some soldier on and both continue to have success on the field and celebrate their religious tradition.
Yeah, our listener Monotonio wants to know what can be done to change college soccer landscape to produce better players for MLS?
I don't know. I honestly just I think there are still some good players that come out of the college game. Certainly, maybe getting the rules in line with FIFA, but I think it's all shifting. I don't know that the college game's influence will be growing anytime in the next decade or two in the United States.
Tim, does the Colombian centre-back Yerry Mina have the ability to play for Barca next season, or is he still too raw? Jelani wants to know.
Yeah, we were talking about it a little bit earlier on with maybe him going to Arsenal. I would personally be more comfortable with him at Arsenal than Barcelona. And I think he's great. But I think if you're going to play for centre-back for Barcelona, your passing has to be spot on. It has to be brilliant. And I think that's an area of his game where he can still develop. And he brings the ball out of defence. He can run with the ball out of defence and bring it out of defence, which is great. But I think an area of his game that would have to improve for him to go to Barcelona is passing, because Barcelona, they do run the risk of losing the ball in dangerous areas, because they want to build from the back and they want to pass from the back. So your passing out the back has to be 100% trustworthy. And that's just one little area where I'm worried about him.
Okay. Oh, gosh, I'm trying to pull one out of the hat here. Chris...
We've got a contender. We've got a contender. I don't know if you've seen this, but
this?
A real contender for the shirt name.
Really? On Twitter? Are you looking on Twitter? Yeah.
I am. Yeah, it's coming from Scott Crowseye. Okay. Peter Panenka.
Peter
Panenka.
Okay.
Because yes,
I've just seen it. Yeah,
you've got the player's name, and you've got that Peter Pan thing, because he's been listening to you. So he's an eternal youngster.
It's good.
So I think that's right in the frame.
Yeah, and
late
John, do you want that in the frame as well?
Yeah, I think it can certainly be top 5.
Yeah. Okay, Peter Panenka in the midst as well, and we've just been sent again on Twitter some examples of Oxford bags for you. I'll retweet it to you just in case you don't know what we're talking about.
Just think kind of Ivy League.
I never know what to expect, because sometimes it's like, okay, yeah, it's actually what we're saying, and then sometimes it's some sort of weird euphemism. So I never really know what's going to come through. I'm always excited.
Yeah, well, trust me, I'm the one who has to watch out for the euphemisms. You can stay safe on that one. And actually, what you should be thinking about in Oxford bags is the kind of trousers that the great Gatsby would have worn in those days. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, those are Oxford bags for you. Chris in Shenfield has suggested, because of all the talk of how many Ronaldos there are in the leagues in your regions tonight and the Oxford connection, we should go for Donaldo, which is not bad, you know. That's not bad for tonight. Yeah.
It's got a virtue of simplicity.
Yeah, of course it has.
There's something in that.
Yeah.
It's very good, actually. The more you think about it, the better it is.
Yeah, Donaldo. Yeah, it's flipping good. I was about to use a stronger word there, but I had to pull myself back all of a sudden. We've had enough strong words.
We've had a couple of those already.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I said.
Get your Oxford bags in a bunch.
And exactly. Herdino. Yeah, I got it. Don't worry. I got it. How about Herdino, in case he gets the third? Yeah.
Well, no. Let's not. Let's not put the heebie-jeebies on him, please.
No, okay. Oh, Graduado, says Dansky in Swansea. Oh, Graduado. They're kind of like. What was that? Not Up Pompeii. Wasn't there one? Oh, Brother. Oh, Graduado. Okay. Brazilian shirt name. Got a few others. Okay, we'll come on to that. We've still got a few minutes. Remember, we can't wake him up at this time of the morning because he's actually sleeping. Where should I go with this? Can you guys just fill in whilst I try and sort of get something?
Yeah, can I tell you a story?
Go on, tell me a story.
Can I tell you a story?
Yeah, go on,
this is the Public Enemy told us a few years ago that 911 is a joke, and it became a joke in Argentina. A fan of Boca Juniors. Boca Juniors are in the fight to win the Argentine title. They're in the league, but that lead is being whittled down. And last weekend that they were away to Huracan, and in the 4th minute of stoppage time, Boca were leading 1-0, and Huracan got awarded a very dubious penalty, and they equalised 1-1, the final score. And a Boca fan dialed 911 in Argentina, and he said, I want to record a robbery. I want to report a robbery. And the woman who answered, the emergency service woman who answered, said, oh, yes, sir, what was the address? And he gives the address of the Huracan Stadium, Park Palacio, so yes. And how many people robbed you? He says, 50,000. 50,000? What was stolen, sir? 2 points. 2 points? Yeah, we would have got 3, but, you know, he's going to get in trouble for it. You know, I know he's wasted the time in the emergency services, but still, he's given us a laugh, isn't he?
Exactly, he's kept us amused. This is Anonymous from Bristol, who's saying, you know, could you do the old graduate in Portuguese, the way that you do Woodgate? How would you say, the way Woodgate is Ujugati, so how do you do graduate?
Graduaci.
It's not as funny, is it? It's not as funny.
No, we've done that one already. Haven't we? We've done that one today. It ain't never going to be topped.
No. Ujugati.
Always leave them wanting more.
The thing with Ujugati is it's got nothing to do with his name or how it's spelled. Whereas Graduati sounds like graduate, except in foreign, if you know what I mean. And Judith in Lincolnshire's having another go with Degriodi. Yeah. See me after class, Judith. 5 out of 10 for that one.
I don't know which way I'm going to go with this one.
Yeah, it's
I've got 4 now that I'm looking at. I'm thinking, you know, how are we going to decide on the 4?
How about you, John? Like Juan Carlos Osorio. I honestly, I haven't been writing down notes like Osorio does. Sometimes he has, and maybe always, sometimes he does like a black, like a note for something good and a red pen for something bad. And so you know when he pulls out the red. That not a good mark for that player. I haven't been keeping notes. What's your top 4, Tim?
Well,
Srilayan.
Yeah, that's my. I like that one.
Mm-hmm.
Oxford Baggio, which is also genius.
Yeah.
Peter Panenka. And and Donaldo. I think they're all absolutely brilliant. I would like him to have all 4, frankly.
I think Estudiantes is good for me.
Yeah, but
he's not going to be a student forever.
Enough. All it means is, you know, Estudiantes means students.
Yeah, okay.
It's also more of an Argentine shirt name.
But he is a student, Estudiant. It's Student Iantes, and it would be difficult for me to pronounce each time he calls. So, you know,
that is a virtue.
I like that one. Gosh, what are we going to call him, guys? Ben.
Well, how do we decide? We might have to put it to a vote or something.
There's one more. Ben in Laos has gone for because, you know, his voice hadn't broken when he first called us, so he's calling him Squilino. Yeah. You see, I think the fact that his voice has now broken kind of rules that out myself. You know, you can't go.
But it's also that it's in the same territory as Srilayan, isn't it?
I know it is.
Which does that and does the name.
Yeah. I suppose so. Yeah.
I think we need a university professor. We have to have a university professor to decide.
No, you two go for whichever ones you want to go for.
I don't know. I can't decide.
Well, you're going to have to tonight, aren't you? The boy's taking his finals in the morning. He's going to finish his finals and expect on the podcast to hear his Brazilian shirt name. We've got to christen him, you know. What are you going for, John? You can go first.
For me, it's Srilayan.
Srilayan.
Yeah, for me that's my top pick.
Tim?
Can you go next?
I'll go for Donaldo.
Oh, right. So so I've got to go for one of those two. Otherwise,
you don't.
You don't
have to. No, you don't have to. You go.
Well, I have to. Really, otherwise we just deadlock. We have an electoral system which isn't serving its needs.
It'll be deadlock, but then we can argue the deadlock, can't we? Go for the one that you want. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go. All right, Srilayan. I'm with
Neymar.
You just did that to stick the boot into me, man. Give me hopes that you'd go for Donaldo, and then you went for Srilayan. Okay, well, he won't be happy with it. Srilayan, you know.
Well, that's part of the game, isn't it?
I know, but you know, the poor boy's suffering later on today. You know, I want to give him something to celebrate when he came out of his finals. I wanted him to look optimistic.
All right. Well, how about if he gets a first, he has the right to change it to Donaldo. But it's dependent on results.
No, you can't change.
That's called an incentive program.
No, you can't change a Brazilian shirt name, mate. You can't change that. No. That would be opening up the.
See, I've seen Brazilian players change their name during the course of their career.
Yeah,
it can be done.
It's not English, is it? It's not English.
I know it's a dangerous precedent. Special circumstances.
He is Sri Layan. From now on, I'm sorry, Ayan. You are Sri Layan. I didn't want it, but Tim and John did. Gentlemen, thanks very much. Always a pleasure.
On digital and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
bbc.co.uk/5live.